Coming up next, it's another edition of our series Bottle Lightning, One Album Wonders. This is where an LP had multiple hit songs and then the artist never had another hit. But this story is different. It ups the ante. It's one of my favorite guests that we've ever had on the show. And he explains how he had a massive #1 hit that we still hear today. And then he had 2 other big hits from that record. And then instead of fading into obscurity, he outsmarted the industry. When they wouldn't play his records anymore. He turned the tables on the old cliche one-hit wonder and ended up being extremely successful. It's a great story and it's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you used to jot down a top 40 countdown, the song placements in your Trapper Keeper as you listen to Casey Kasem counting them down, you're going to love this channel. Make sure that you subscribe below right now, hit the red button, click the bell so that you get the story straight from the artists about these songs. So it's time for another edition of our series Bottle Lightning, my favorite. This is where we break down the history of a beloved one-hit extravaganza, that still resonates in our culture. But this time, we're going to tweak it a little bit. We've done a few of these where we talk about it from the album side, where an album blew up with multiple hit singles and then never reached those levels again. Today's story, though, is very unique. Rupert Holmes shattered the cliche one-hit wonder when, after having an album with 3 hits, including the #1 smash Escape, the Pina Colada song,
if you like pina coladas and getting caught in the...
His next 2 albums flopped. He could have just been another promising artist who disappeared into obscurity, but he outsmarted the very industry that swallows entertainers whole. He knew that he didn't have Robert Redford's looks, or Freddie Mercury's voice for that matter, but he was a witty songwriter with a creative mind. So he turned the tables and he diversified his talents. He pursued other avenues. He became one of the most successful Renaissance men in modern entertainment history. He created Tony Award-winning plays and musicals and an Emmy Award-winning television series, as well as became a best-selling author. He wrote a #1 hit for another band in the late 80s. Coming up next, Rupert Holmes tells us the stories behind these hits and his conquest to master an industry that is so unforgiving, including the story of his last solo hit that has become a relic of the 80s due to being about a piece of technology that we no longer use. Some critics have called it one of the worst songs of all time. He also tells us about the #1 hit he gave to another artist in 1987. Trust me, Rupert is always amazing. You're going to love this. As we go into this interview, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. Since Zenni has been our sponsor, I've received so many comments from our viewers who've absolutely loved their glasses. They love the features, anti-fog, anti-glare, and blue blocks. These guys are the real deal. Go to Zenni.com right now to get on board. Here's one of our greatest storytellers, Rupert Holmes. Rupert, you've established yourself as a composer of story songs, like we've said. Answering Machine, 3rd single from Partners in Crime.
I'm so sorry you have just reached my answering machine.
Peaked at 32 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #12 on the AC charts. And that's another yacht rock classic because...
I noticed that. Yeah, on Yacht Rock, it keeps, people are always, it's lovely. People are so great. I'll get texts. I'll get like 10 a day, and they'll say, "Look what's on my radio right now." In my day, you wouldn't take a picture of your radio to show people what was on it. But and what's funny is that they send me Answering Machine as much as they send me Escape or Hymn.
Yep.
So Yacht Rock seems to like that song.
A little while ago, I went and placed a call.
It does have one of my favorite lines that I wrote, which is, "So I went out to buy some dog food for the cat." And people seem to really enjoy that line. I'm not even sure what I meant when I wrote it.
So I stepped out to buy some dog food for the cat.
On Answer Machine, the story song featured touch-tone dial sequence, Answer Machine beep.
And I said, "Baby, let's go get married. I need to know."
Take me through that song about writing it. What inspired it? Because it's a very interesting song. Like Escape Pina Colada song, I feel like it is a 3-act story. You're hearing this story from different perspectives.
The telephone answering machine was a new device. Found it to be a very frustrating device. It created all kinds of social problems. One is you get a message like this. Rupert, pick up. I know you're there, so pick up. Are you there? We don't do that anymore. We go to voicemail, and we know that once we're in voicemail, we're alone. We're really alone. We're in a little chamber somewhere, and no one's ever going to pick up on us. But answering machines always had the possibility that suddenly it'd be saying, "Listen, I don't know how to tell you this, but listen, something to what is it? What is it? What happened?" Which means that they were existing in this kind of Twilight Zone alternate reality where maybe or where another person might deign to join the conversation if you made it interesting enough, important enough, or it was like you call and say, "Hey, I've got some really good news. Hi, I'm here. What is it?" And if you had said some bad, I always used to tell people to leave their message before they heard the tone, and that confused them completely. So I thought about all the ways that this device could screw up somebody's life or frustrate someone's life. And I thought of all the times that I left a message, and just as I was getting to the most important part of the message, the machine cut me off.
And the phone went dead.
Or the nightmare of you say too much, you blurt something. Or you say listen, I really love you, Diane. And now you can't get to that recording and fix that. Who's Donna? No, you just said Donna on the machine. I just heard it. I just curious. So I started to think, well, what could go wrong with an answering machine? And I thought, well, it could be just very frustrating. You could decide, on impulse, I'm going to propose. I think I'm ready to make the commitment.
Get married. I need to know your mind.
And I'm going to propose, but it's going to cut me off before I propose. And then I thought, well, what would be great would be if she answers and says, well, my answer is.
My answer is. And the phone went, I'm so sorry you have.
And there's a famous story called The Lady or the Tiger, which has one of the great frustrating endings of all time, because a hero has to choose one of two doors, and behind one is a lady, a maiden who he will marry if he chooses that door, and behind another is a tiger that will devour him. And the woman who loves him is in the audience, and she has learned who is behind which door. And she signals to him, and if he picks the door that is the lady, he will marry that lady and not her. So she might have a reason to lie and say, if I can't have you, no one's going to have you. She's not going to have you. Choose the door with the tiger. And the author leads you to being insanely curious as to what's behind the door. And the author, who I think was named Frank Stockton, maybe, never tells you. And it's left up to you. And that's maddening. So I thought, well, if he did it to me, I can do it to listeners. So I never quite tell you what the answer is. And I decided to do a couple of things in production that were kind of interesting, I think. One is I did actually play all those sounds, the touch tone dial.
I'm so sorry you have just reached my answer.
I actually found a way to recreate that on a synthesizer. The same synthesizer, by the way, that did the flute sounds and the surf sounds on Escape was I used to get the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The trick was that you had to do not only da-da-da-da-da-da, but you had to do another tone that went da-da-da-da-da-da, because there's always two tones and the relationship of those two tones. And it sounds pretty accurate. And the beep.
And she said, baby, I got your message. Why I'm answering your...
That is from the synth as well. But it's a really good beep. As beeps in my records go, it's one of I'd say the three best beeps that occurs in any of my recordings. But then I thought, here's the thing. I can't sing. I don't want to sing her response in quotes. The listener wants to hear her, who this person is.
I got your message. Why I'm answering your call.
So I had a wonderful backup singer. Chrissy Faith was her name. And she's still singing. She's in Italy now. But she's a great singer. And I said, she'll have to sing the verse because that'll make it a true radio show.
I have thought it out, I have thought it out, and I think that all in
And that was part of what I was trying to do. You have to keep in mind that this is still, in the era of Escape, him, Answering Machine, this is still just before music videos. And I was lucky to exist in the 70s and just into the 80s as a recording artist in the era when, if you wanted there to be a movie to go with the song, you had to make the movie in your head yourself. And that was, to me, what the beauty of old-time radio was. Superman flew much more realistically on the radio than he did on TV, where you could see the wires holding him up. But on radio, he flew perfectly. So in all of my songs, I'm trying, through the kinds of words I use, the sounds and things the orchestra does, I'm trying to force you to create the movie, to be my cinematographer, and to envision this situation.
if we can marry and make it for all time.
I decided that Chrissy should sing that verse. I kept myself singing the harmony just to keep my presence in the record, but I pushed myself back in the mix, and I pushed her forward so that you would really feel like you were the guy waiting to hear, was she going to say, I accept your proposal or not, so that you'll move to the edge of your seat and say, I wonder how it's going to turn out. And then you go, oh, no, I cut him out. And then just to taunt you a little bit, she sings this nice kind of a counter, on the face, still not saying any words, still frustrating you like I was frustrated by the story of the Lady or the Tiger. So that's what went into that song.
Sorry, you have just reached my answering machine. If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the
Last song to hit number one on the Billboard Hot 100 in the 70s.
Most of the time when I write a story song, I say, okay, if you were in that situation that you've just invented, what would then probably happen? So that it feels like it's really happening to me. So I thought, what would happen to you if you ever answered one of those ads? And I started to write this lyric. The chorus began, if you like Humphrey Bogart and getting caught in the rain. I had this lyric that I've typed out. I have never actually sung the song out loud. I've only read it out loud. And I look at the lyric and it says, if you like Humphrey Bogart. I said, this couple in the story, they want escape. They want to go to the island. What are the escape drinks? Mai Tai, daiquiri, pina colada. If you like pina coladas. I said, oh, that actually works pretty well. So that's what I'll do.
If you like pina coladas.
Another story song that you wrote, and it could have been just relegated to being just a clever novelty song, but it ended up becoming like a pop culture phenomenon. It's a story song that's really in 3 acts. Every verse, it furthers the story in the cinematic vein that is through this song.
It started out being a kind of song I made up in my head. My office was on Fifth Avenue, and I looked out the window at Fifth Avenue, and I noticed that there were nothing but Italian designer stores on the street. And I started humming a song that went, Fiorucci, baby, with your new Gucci shoes. Poochie Poochie, baby, Gucci G's, Gucci Goose. So now it's the night before our last day of recording is booked in Plaza Sound. So I have to sing this record. I have to sing this song that I have not yet written, for which I have a track, the next day at 10 a.m. And I look across the table and I see the Village Voices there, and it has all these personal columns on the back of it. And it's all columns about people saying, I am attractive and beautiful and love fun and like going on, right, contact me at this number. Maybe they want this adventure.
Where we'll plan our escape.
The question I get most asked of any question at all about escape is people come to me and say, is that story true? People, they want so much to hear that it is a true story. And I always hate to disappoint them and say, no, it's a work of fiction. I made it up. But I do take a lot of things that happen in life and say, well, what would my take be on that if that did happen to me?
Tell me about him. The vocal on that is very nuanced. A lot of imagery in there, a pack of cigarettes.
There's a pack of cigarettes
I love mysteries. As a matter of fact, I'm a mystery writer. I write mystery novels and plays. And I always find clues on someone's desk or in someone's home kind of interesting.
What's she gonna do?
Escape, the Pina Colada song, is one vocal, one take. And there's some harmonies that I then added. But with him, the chorus was really, it took a long time to record that.
What's she gonna do about him?
And I was trying, because it's about a guy trying to assert that the woman he's with is going to have to make a choice between himself and this other person. He's trying to present himself as strong. And I realized that the vocal had to be kind of strong that way too.
No one gets to get it for free.
I find people fascinating. And so anytime I see an unusual situation, I think, what if? Same thing as with Pina Colada. And I thought about people sort of saying, well, having enough pride to say, if you want to have someone else in your life, that's fine, but you don't get to have both things.
Well, I also want to discuss that you being the lyricist for the smash You Got It All, which one of the two biggest hits that the Jets had.
You got it all over.
Tell me about writing that and how it came together for the Jets to do that.
They were a good group and they were great kids. It was very unusual. I had just had my show open up, my first musical open on Broadway. And I thought I might never write a pop record again. And I had just finished recording the cast album. The show won the Tony Award for Best Musical, for Best Book, for Best Score. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with pop now, because I'm going to be writing for theater, I guess. And my manager came to me and said that he was representing a rock band who came from Tonga. And this was a family. Some of the kids were adopted, but it was a family. And they needed a ballad, a love song. They had recorded what they thought might be a big hit, which was Crush on You, and it was.
You found out I've got a crush on you.
And someone involved with the production had been involved with Michael Jackson at that time. I don't know if it was the same engineer or the same producer had co-produced. And they said, but they need a ballad. They don't have a love ballad. And they told me that the lead singer of the group was a 14-year-old girl. And I thought to myself, because remember, this is pre-Britney Spears. This is pre-Christina Aguilera. No one had written a song like Hit Me Baby One More Time. That kind of a song coming out of the mouth of someone in their mid-teens was not considered acceptable. And I thought, so I've got to write a love ballad for a 14-year-old girl. How do I do that? How do I make that credible? The idea occurred to me to write a very simple song, harmonically kind of actually interesting, but lyrically something that a teenage girl of 14 might say to a boy of 15, basically saying, oh, I know my old boyfriend was that boy, but you've got it all over him. You've made me feel bad and you make me feel good. And he just did nothing but put me down and depress me. And you came and you were so positive. So I thought, okay, so that could be a song.
Game he would play.
And I thought the song was very sweet, and I thought she sang it beautifully and had actually a very nice groove to it.
One look and I knew.
Wrote it for them and heard the finished version. And a year after my Broadway musical wins the Tony Awards, a song of mine is back on the charts.
Who do I love the best?
Number 3, top 40. And I got to write some more songs like that for them.
I liked how it sounded like to me as a 50s ballad with 80s production. That's what I liked about it.
That's a good way to put it. I guess you're sort of right about that.
You got it all over.
Got it all, and then you have the background vocals of the guys singing that. And very much, when we talk about the Platters,
Only you.
I mean, it had that feel, but with 80s production.
You got me
was also used in Jaws. Was it Jaws the Revenge?
Jaws, the Revenge.
It was, of course, redone by Britney Spears.
You've got it all.
The other thing I want to point out about the Jets version that was good that you helped them with this hit is not at all establish them, because you have one hit, but then if you can have another hit that really establishes who the Jets were, which is great harmonies, and then there were other songs that followed after that in that vein, Make It Real.
It's what's particularly strong is if you can have a dance record that's got a real good groove, and if you can follow that with a ballad, some kind of romantic song, that shows that no one can be sure exactly what kind of record you're going to make next. The one thing you should never do, if you come out with this sort of the same record as your second record, it actually can limit your career because people think, oh, well, now I know what you do. But if you can come out with a romantic ballad, putting the focus on a tender vocal by a 14-year-old lead singer, instead of it being mainly the group, a group sound, that shows that you've got some range there.
Just you must have been heaven sent.
In 83, you're 36 years old. You've already had more success than most people have had in an entire lifetime. And then you have this life-changing meeting.
I was headlining at Dangerfield's. I was the first musical act to ever headline at Rodney Dangerfield's club in New York. And Joe Papp and his wife Gail Merrifield, who knew my earlier albums, came to see me. They said, have you ever thought about writing for theater? I said, I've thought about nothing but that all my life. And I thought, I got to take this seriously. And I had always had the idea of writing a musical based on an unfinished novel by Charles Dickens called The Mystery of Edwin Drood. I'd known about the work all my life, but I first made an attempt to write it in 1971, in the same time frame when I was writing songs like Timothy.
Timothy, Timothy, Joe was looking.
And I revisited that idea in 1983. So I basically took off 2.5 years of my life. And I did something that no one had actually done this, at least successfully before, which is I wrote the music and the lyrics, but I also wrote the book, which is the script. So I took it upon myself to write the script as well as the lyrics, as well as the music, and wrote this thing called The Mystery of Edwin Drood. And we opened on Broadway, and we got great reviews, and it won the Tony Awards. I was the first person in the history of theater to win a Tony Award solely for book, music, and lyrics. That's only been duplicated by 2 other people. Most recently, Lin-Manuel Miranda for Hamilton. But I actually did that, and it was my first musical. It was the first thing I'd ever written for the stage.
Well, and I don't know how you found the time, but somehow you managed to write, talked about it a little bit, but highly regarded mystery novel, Where the Truth Lies, which was a book list top 10 debut novel.
So much of my life, I've done things for the first time that I've never done before, where I had no idea how you go about doing them. But I learned things the hard way. I loved writing a novel. Again, I feel like I'm doing everything new, and that makes me feel new. So again, The Mystery of Edwin Drood was the first thing I'd ever written for the stage. Very lucky that I did comedy at Dangerfield's. Very lucky that they knew my work from earlier albums, that I was willing to risk doing 3 years of work for nothing. Suddenly, I'm no longer, yeah, he writes pop songs. I'm now, playwright Rupert Holmes. I thought, oh, that's wonderful. And I am. I have since for the Broadway stage. So it's been some trip and a half.
So what do you think about Rupert Holmes writing his own ticket? Let me know in the comments below. Such a great guy. Let's have a nice discussion about this. I think it's pretty interesting how Rupert played to his strengths, mastering several areas of the industry. And also share your thoughts on his classic hit, Escape the Pina Colada song, as well as him and Answer Machine. What do you think of that song? I always thought it takes me right back to when I was a little kid. Also, make sure you subscribe below right now and click the bell so you always get the story straight from the artist. You can also become an honorary producer on our Patreon by clicking on the link in the description. We have some awesome themes coming up. Until next time, 3 chords.